that if you have somebody that's close to you or somebody that you love that passes away and you don't speak about them, then they kind of die twice. The reason why I have that picture up there is we're going to kind of start at the end of the story and then kind of work our way back. And I kind of want you to put your mind in a place where, you know, truth be told, I've never seen that video. I did that video, the fire department asked me in 2021 in March. They said, hey Craig, can you come down? They called me on a Wednesday. They said, hey, can you come down? We want to archive the Western Fire. And I was like thinking to myself, that's kind of odd because in 2 years we're going to have the 25th year anniversary. That'd be kind of more appropriate. They said, no, we want to get it now. So I went down there and I probably spoke for maybe an hour and a half, but what they were going to use it for, I think it was a couple days before March 8th, they were going to put something out on our intranet, the department intranet, and so they you know, when March 8th came around, they had something to watch the fire station. So my only request to them was, yeah, I may talk for an hour and a half, but kind of shrink wrap it so when they're watching it at the fire station, if they choose to, that they're not sitting here watching an hour and a half. So I've never seen that video. I never saw it, never really had a desire to watch it. They asked me to do it, so I did it. But truth be told too is that I was looking at the flyer for today and its kind of theme was surviving the Mayday. Well, for me, I didn't call it Mayday. So in order to survive it, you have to call it. So I'm gonna walk you through, a couple weeks ago, I was flying back. I have family that lives in Alberta, Canada, specifically Calgary. And I was, just a couple weeks ago, and by the way, if you've never experienced minus 31 degree temperatures, that's, it's cold. I was flying home on the airplane and I was kind of thinking, kind of sketching out today's conversation that we're going to share today. And I tell you, 25 years goes fast. And I remember, I don't know, since I haven't seen that video, I don't know if they put it in there, but there was a point where the photographer, the guy that was kind of filming me, and I told you, they called me on a Wednesday, I just sat down on a Friday and just, I put no preparation to it. I just sat in the chair and I just said, hey, give me 5 minutes. I gotta kind of, and I just started talking. I don't even know if it makes sense. But there was a point in that video where we drove to the building, 5972 Southwestern, and he wanted to capture just the building, I guess. And the weird thing was, as we parked and I'm walking down Western, the Delta side of that building would be 59th Street. I got to the front door, and really the only thing that's changed in that building since that fire, they redid it, is there was 5 windows on the south side, which is the Delta side of that building, that are no longer there. But as I got to the front door, and I kind of knelt down, I remember where I put my nozzle, and the same chip that was in that sidewalk was there. It was weird because the sounds and the smells and that visual, 25 years later, or 23 years later at the time, it just came kind of rushing back. It's kind of odd that the things that you capture in your mind. Today's conversation that we're going to share is kind of simple. I have a couple things I want to get across. One, I don't want to waste your time this morning. You took time out to come here. It's the first thing. But the second thing is I want everybody in this room to be the Los Angeles City Fire Department Agent 57's nozzle member. And I'm going to take you through, step by step, play by play, everything I saw from the third person to the first person, conversations I had with myself, conversations I had with everybody else. And then once we get through that fire, we'll see what time it is and maybe take a 5-10 minute break, and then I'm going to turn around and kind of capture, kind of fill in maybe some blanks if there's any missing blanks. But as we're going through, the stage is kind of big, so I'm going to utilize it. I'm going to take you through literally everything that I did. From the time I got to work in the morning, and I want you to think of 2 things. I want you to think of all the watch outs, if you will, or red flags. Because in every single line of duty death, there's a ton of them. And all those stories, and this is a NIOSH report. I don't know if you're familiar with the NIOSH report, if you've ever read a NIOSH report. NIOSH is basically Cal OSHA at the national version. And they're in charge of writing line of duty deaths. This one here is a triple decker in Massachusetts. 2018. And it's a pretty thick NIOSH report. Triple decker is basically what we would call a wood frame 3-story center hall in LA City. But this incident has zero to do with this incident, but they read the same. There's going to be 3 commonalities in this report and in this report. And they're the 3 C's: continuity, complacency, and communications, lack of. So anytime you read a NIOSH report, and I don't care, you can go like this and pick one. It doesn't matter where it is. It's the only thing that's going to change is the ladder, the lieutenant, the captain, the firefighter, the AO, the engineer, the department name, and time of day. But the guy that writes it says, I have a Word document and I just cut and paste. So the question is, and I'll tie this up after we get out of the structure fire, but I'm going to take you there. I'm going to take you into this fire. I'm going to take you to the verge of just before you die. And then we're going to get out. And when we're done with that, we're going to kind of tie it up. But my question to him is, he said, Craig, it's there. Every single fire. And 25 years later, I'm standing here. And today I'm gonna hammer this cross right here. It's a rhetorical cross that's standing there. And I'm gonna take that burden, I'm gonna put it there. Because when I leave here today, I'll never speak of this again. I'm gonna leave it here. I can't carry the weight. And I plead with you today to listen to this, because everybody in this room would have gone inside that building. Because we didn't have heavy fire showing. It wasn't a defensive fire. It was 100% offensive fire. But what happened at the time we stretched those hose lines from the time that building got open until the time we made entry? Significant changes. And this thing, it was this in the making. And nobody had the courage, the strength. There's so much, we're Battalion 13. That's a Sparkle Corps of LA City. -9s. 9s ran 35,000 calls last year. They're the best. But Battalion 13 is it. You want to get the set, that's a proving ground. You want to get the sets of reps, you want to learn your job, you want to become a good firefighter. It's hard. I feel like we've lost our way in the fire service. I feel like we've lost our way when it comes to actually learning our job as firefighters. Because it's messy, it hurts sometimes. You have to sacrifice to get to those busy companies, to really get yourself surrounded by people that will make you better. You have to go to those incidents, and sometimes it's painful, it hurts. 5 after midnight all the time to get that one structure fire. I've said the same prayer for 28 years, off 28 years in a couple weeks. Lord, if there's a fire in the city today, let me be a part of it. Careful what you wish for sometimes, but I said the same thing. But I've been wrestling with God myself for 25 years to answer one question. And I've lost that wrestling match. Why? Why was it me that was there? Why was I the last one? And I'll tell you that I've thought about that for years. And the only thing that I can come up with is that it's not about the tactics and strategies. And for years, I tried to just become that firefighter that I wasn't. Because I'm standing here today and I'm telling you, if this fire happened today, knowing what just me, not the other 100 firefighters who were at that fire, just me, if that fire happened today, we wouldn't have this result. But I can't change that. That was the most amazing funeral and the most sad thing I've ever experienced in my life. Outside of my wife passing away in 2010. That was the single most amazing thing I've ever seen. But it's still a funeral. There's thousands of people, rigs as far as the eye can see. People from FDNY all over the country, but it's still a funeral. I can't even imagine the pain and suffering that Captain Dupee's wife Julie and her family's gone through for 25 years. She was a good man, a good and decent man. And I can't, sorry about that. I plead with you, because you never go to work thinking it's going to happen to you. I can tell you when I show up fire station at 5:30 in the morning, the engine was gone because they're up all night. When I was getting my stuff prepared to get on the fire engine and make relief, I never thought about going to fire. Last thing on my mind was a Mayday. In fact, we didn't even call Mayday, we called a red alert. Then we transitioned a few years after this incident to emergency traffic, and in 2014 we went to Mayday. But you never expect it. And as good as you think you are, we were pretty good. We went to a lot of fires down there. Yeah, I had 3 years on the job, but I had a very seasoned engine captain, very seasoned engineer. The firefighter that was right next to me was a 30-year veteran that was a fire inspector that got detailed back to the fire station for staffing shortage, so he'd only been out of the field a very short time. Solid resume and had great assignments. So the experience is there, and the other companies, 33, 66s, 46s, 34s, 26s, blah, blah, the whole side. There was good people there, experienced people. This building was 60 by 110. And they made dog treats. We brought the death there. There was a life hazard there. But I'm telling you, everybody here would have gone inside that building because we had light smoke showing. So as we travel through, and I'm kind of stoked on the stage because it's big, because I'm going to turn the stage into a hallway. We're literally going to go from the time I show up to work, and we're going to go until the end of this fire. So don't think I'm nuts, because I'll probably end up crawling, but that's the only way for me to articulate this is to put you inside it. I have 2 slides, and these are my notes. I can't prepare for this. I scripted out so much stuff. I was having battles with myself, and I just, at the end of the day, said, hey, look, the only way to get the point across is to put you in this fire. So I show up to work at 5:30 in the morning on March 7th, and engine's out. Engine 57 is a super busy engine, so being out isn't uncommon. I make relief. We have a busy day. They had a fire the day before with, they had a 2-story fourplex, heavy fire on the 2nd floor that Engine 57 was involved in. And as we go through this, remember, I want those red flags, start charting those red flags, because they start early. And as I go through it, as I start to take you into this fire, once we get there in a couple minutes here, start making a mental note to write down red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag. The right term is structural watchouts. I just call it, it's a red flag, right? All these things that lead to these. And by the way, they're preventable. I really believe that. If we refocus our thought process on, look, you don't get a re-rack here. This job is very unforgiving. And every fire will paint you a picture. Some are easier than others to read, but it's your job as a firefighter to train, to think, to better yourself. And don't ever let your guard down. Don't ever be one of those 3 C's, complacent. And this incident here, we had complacency, lack of continuity, and communications, all 3 of them. So we go through our shift. I'll never forget, it was a busy day, standard. And Captain Dupee comes up to me about 2,000 hours, about 8 o'clock, says, hey, Craig, I'm thrashed, I'm tossed, I'm gonna go to bed. You got the business phone? Go ahead, no problem. On the end of a 72, so red flag, tossed, going to bed early. The alarm comes in, it's 2:20 in the morning, and the dispatch goes like this. This is a reported structure fire for Task Force 66, Rescue 866, Engine 57, Engine 46, Engine 34, Light Force 26, Battalion 13. Responded to reported structure fire, 5972 Southwestern, 592 Southwestern, incident number 84, time channel 1212. I remember getting up and getting to the rig, suiting up, boom, we're out the door. And I remember asking Cap, I said, hey, just verify TAC 12. Yeah, TAC 12. And I looked over at Ted, firefighter. I said, hey, we're probably going to fire, because he'd only been at 57 a very short amount of time. I said, we're probably going to fire because we've had 3 graders there in that area in the last couple months. So there's a high probability we're going to fire. Okay, Roger. En route, heading north on Western. I remember looking up. Hey, Cap, I think I see a Luma. Yeah, okay. So the 66 gets on scene. It says Yellow City from Task Force 6. Oh, en route, 33 standard says 8. Yellow City from Light Force 33 are available. Add us to that structure at 66s. 33s, Roger, pushing right. We're added to that structure. Light Force 26 discontinued. So they added 33s. En route, kind of looking. Cap says, hey, Craig, I think we're probably going to be back on fire tax, so start thinking about that. Okay. So we're coming out of the north. So that right there is the Delta side. That's the south. So we're coming up out of the north, And there were whirlybirds on top. That's it. They have skylights now, I guess, but before they had ventilators up there. And 66s gets on scene to the OCD from Task Force 66 on scene at 592 Southwestern Street. We don't have a one-story commercial. We do have light smoke showing. Okay. But what I saw kind of didn't add up to that, but okay. Yeah, I thought I saw heavier smoke than that, but it's okay. We get on scene, it backs up. So the backup line was 1.5 inches. 1.5 inch hose line. And where we spotted was kind of like right here. So my hose lay development was really super simple, man. I just had to get off the rig, grab the nozzle, grab full, and I kind of did like a drill tower hose lay. It was perfect. Clear conditions, kind of just laid out what I thought would be enough hose. I got dropped 200 feet on the ground, perfect folds, everything was right. The inside member off of truck 66 was starting to work on the door, and what covered that front door was a 36-inch security door and a 36-inch hollow core metal clad door. Bread and butter for LA City, Battalion 13 companies. 66s went to the roof, and Light Force 33 got on scene, they went to the roof. So now you've got engine 66 developing a hose lay, you got engine 57 developing a hose lay. You've got 46s coming in, you've got 34s that came in and went around. And the reason I share all this with you is because it took me a minute to stretch that hose line. I get that hose line laid out, just the side of that door. I get down, set my nozzle, bleed it, everything's good. And I'm watching these guys do forcible entry. And it looked like they were struggling. So I asked Cap, I said, hey Cap, do you want me to grab the Hayward and the rotor saw and help these guys? No, I want you to stay here. As soon as that door gets open, I want you to advance that line. So, 1.5 inch hose line, is that appropriate for a one-story commercial with light smoke showing? Absolutely not. No. Don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Minimum 1.75 inch. At the time, that fire didn't kind of really warrant maybe a 2.5. Something to consider. So I'm watching these guys do force entry and they're really struggling. So for some reason, and I don't know to this day why I did that, but I ran down to look inside those windows. And what I was seeing when I left my nozzle to run over there, and I kind of took a peek, I kind of came over here and I looked down, there was 5 windows on that Delta side. I saw good smoke in there. So I came back and told Cap, I said, Cap, there's a lot of smoke in there. And I remember an engineer coming up to me as I'm waiting. I asked Cap again, I said, do you want me to get involved in this force? He goes, stay at the nozzle, get ready to go. Good. And I remember an engineer coming up to me telling me, hey Craig, we've been here before on fires. There's big ovens in there. They do dog bones, dog biscuit, all the dog related stuff, right? So I'm thinking to myself, all right, we got an oven fire. But what I just saw, and I wasn't good enough to go there for a reason. It wasn't like I had a specific reason to go look at those. I just felt for some reason I needed to go look there. 25 years later, I would have a reason for it, but back then I didn't. 3 years on the job, right? So I go to that, I look through that window, I come back, I relay that to Cap, but now I'm starting to build something in my mind. We've got probably an oven fire, but the conditions are starting to change, right? It's becoming thicker smoke, more moderate, more dense. This forcible entry issue, it seemed like an eternity, but we're going on 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes. They're still working on a 36-inch security door over a 36-inch hollow core metal clad door. I asked Cap the 3rd time, do you want me to stay at the nozzle? Got it. No problem. Unbeknownst to us, 33s and 66s were on the roof, and they were doing some good work up there. But every time, like that video said, every time they dipped their saw, they were drawing red lines. So I don't know what their ventilation operation was. I can't speak that because I never went to the roof. But I can tell you this: almost they guesstimate between 8 to 10 minutes to get that door open. 8 to 10 minutes, and a building sealed up like that with a working fire is an eternity. It's enough to change the dynamics dramatically. So once that, ultimately opened up that door, it was never a rotary saw or a Hayward or a Halligan, it was a sledgehammer. 13 hits on a sledgehammer finally pushed that door in. And I'll never forget this because it was the oddest thing, and I did not have the experience to understand really what I was seeing, but as soon as that door got open, I was on 66's heels. As fast as they could move, I was on them. And it was about a 20, maybe 25-foot hallway
So to understand these buildings down on Battalion 13, they're usually fortified like they were, decent security. You'll have a front office sometimes with the hallway, kind of like we did, and it'll stop in a doorway and it'll terminate to a warehouse. It's exactly what this thing had, but common knowledge is most of these have mezzanines. And that place huge. But the oddest thing to me was when they opened up that door finally got open, and we didn't know that the trucks were coming off the roof as we were making entry into this building. We were unaware of that. So as we're going down this hallway, there was no smoke that was being pushed out that front door. I remember vividly, I remember specifically seeing some papers on the ground that were getting sucked into that warehouse. And I found that striking. That was just weird, and I didn't understand what was happening there. So we get to the end of that hallway, and there's a door that kind of takes you into the warehouse area. And I remember very specifically that there was heavy smoke. Very, very, very thick, heavy smoke. And I could hear the fire, but it was over my head. I could hear it, so I took my glove off and I stood up. Yes. Okay, we're good. Glove back on. And 66s went this way, so we kind of started crawling. We're taking our line, and we're advancing, and I'm going to the right. And I remember I could feel the smoke. It was just weird because it was just pushing and pushing. I could hear the fire, but I couldn't see it. I didn't know where it was at. So I thought, okay, 66 is going to go this way. We're going to go this way. Whoever's backing us up will probably be 46. 34s went around to the back. Because the back side of this, what you don't see, is a 15-foot rolling steel door. And ultimately, that 15-foot rolling steel door was open, but way late. I'll come back to that. So on your red flag chart, how many red flags are we seeing at this point? 1.5 inch hose line. We're going down a hallway. We get to a warehouse area, and there's heavy smoke in there. You got multiple companies going through a small portal of entry, smoke being sucked in. And what was happening that I know now that I wasn't being able to process, I couldn't wrap my brain around what I was seeing because I didn't have that much knowledge, was that was a deep-seated fire that was starting from that O2. And that fire was just being, what that stage that fire was in was now just being accelerated because we just gave it everything that it needed. It needed that O2. We have two truck companies coming off the roof as we're making a tier attack. 66 is going this way. I just chose to go to the right of them. I could hear the fire, but I could not see it. And one thing I will tell you is that was an arched truss roof. So from floor to ceiling, we're probably looking at 18, 20 feet. So what's happening up at roof level is not necessarily what's happening down below. So you could have a whole different world happening, and that's actually what was happening. Back then, we had Mark II Survivor SCBAs. And the deal with those were they were 30-minute bottles, and you had a red riveted ring, which was your second stage. You had a face piece, those that came off from face piece, and you hooked into that red riveted second stage. I remember several times as we're crawling down that hallway, or when we get into that warehouse, I remember very specifically activating that, like, hey, Craig, your bypass is going off, your bypass is going off. So I turn that down, and that becomes critical because it's valuable air that was being wasted that I'm about to need in about 5 minutes. So as we're getting deeper in here, I can hear it. The conditions are starting to get a little warm, but you know, oftentimes you hear, hey, we went into this fire and things just changed on a dime. That didn't happen here. There was a progression of time. Remember, there was 8 to 9 minutes, even up to maybe even 10 minutes of forcible entry. So that fire is doing whatever that fire is doing, and it's just needing that last third piece of that triangle to create it, to accelerate it, and it was that oxygen that we provided by opening up that door. So as we're crawling in, so 9 minutes goes by, we're down in, now we're in the warehouse, and that fire is being accelerated. We don't have vertical ventilation, so whatever they got open on the roof is self-venting. It turned out, and we didn't know any of this is after the report, but it turned out that fire had started in one of those big ovens, just like he told me. But it ran vertical, It ran the ducting and then it ran horizontal. So that fire that we did not realize, and it makes sense why 66s and 33s were drawn so much water so quick. Because that fire was literally a structure fire from the onset. And all we did by opening that front door is create that type of a flow path, because eventually that back rolling steel door got open. Yeah, the perfect scenario, right? To accelerate and to feed that. You got a sealed up building that now isn't sealed, that's got oxygen, it's got a place, you're providing ventilation, so you're creating a perfect flow path, right? But we didn't know any of that. So I remember we're probably 60 feet into this building. Remember, it's only 60 by 110. It's not a big building. You look at that building, you're like, how do you kill somebody in that? I remember I told you that everybody in this room would have gone in because we did have light smoke. The difference in this fire is what we should have done, because the whole time I was going down that hallway, something felt off. This wasn't a different fire. Typically the fires that I've been to in the past, it was, all right, we're gonna go in and do our job. We're gonna go do some good work. We're gonna save this. This had a different feel to it. And I couldn't describe it. I don't know, it was off. Something was off. And if you ask everybody that was on scene of that fire, they'll tell you the same thing. But nobody had the ability to, remember, if we go back to these things right here, you could stop this. It takes discipline. 2 wrongs never make a right. At some point, especially since everybody after this fire, the interviews, at some point somebody should have said, stop. Let's kind of regroup. The communications from the truck to the engine companies weren't there. The communications from the incident commander to the companies, it was a debacle. Somebody should have said stop. What are we doing here? So we continue on. We go in, and honestly, I don't even know what I'm looking for. I can hear the fire, but I can't see anything. It's starting to progressively start to get warmer. I'm breathing heavy, and at that time, I was in the best shape of my life. A lot younger than I am now. And so it wasn't a physical conditioning, and Chief Castro hit that up earlier, it wasn't a physical conditioning piece for me. But that is very much in line with those NIOSH reports. Cardiovascular, mental health, physical well-being, all those do play factors. But not in this case. It wasn't a physical issue. 30-minute bottle, I'm kind of sucking it down, I'm kind of pumped up. So you had, even being in great, tremendous shape, you probably had 15, 20 minutes max working condition. But I will tell you, when you're in this environment and you start to heat up, you're never going to cool down. And that's going to suck your air down faster than anything. The only way you will cool down in an environment like that is to get out of it. You can't roll over. You can't cover yourself up. Once you start to heat up, there's the point of no return. The only way you're going to cool down is to leave. We kept pushing. We're probably 65, 70 feet in this thing. And I kind of look up. I'm asking Ted to pull some hose. I get to a certain point, and I just kind of sit there for a second. I kind of look up and I see this, like I kind of said in that video, like this flame, like this spider. I found that odd. But when I saw that, I thought to myself, I think I see something. So I stood up like this, and I took the nozzle, and I went like this. And I hit something again, and I did it a second time. And that's when I realized we're in a bad spot. I realized that we're under a mezzanine. So I turned to my captain and I said, Cap, we're under a mezzanine, we need to back out. I cannot fight this fire. I think we should start backing out. Roger. Never once did I ever hear any communications on the radio. Maybe because I wasn't listening. Maybe because TAC 12 was known to have problems in that area. But I didn't hear a whole lot of conversation on the radio. So at that point, we start to back out, and I made a conscious decision to keep the nozzle with me. In my mind, I was convinced that something bad was going to happen, and I remember specifically right for life, left for life. And I set that nozzle pattern very specifically because if something happened, I felt like that was the only thing that we had that was any type of defendable space between us and if this building ultimately was going to light off. So as we turn around, we kind of reversed order, and it was Ted, myself, and Joe. And as we started to retreat, I remember I felt like I had been breathing a lot. I hit my second stage multiple times, so I lost some valuable air.
And I remember it wasn't long after we started to retreat that my low air bell was going off. And now I'm starting to think in my mind, this isn't good, because at that time you had two options. If you ran out of air, you were going to disconnect your second stage regulator from your second stage, and you were going to hook it into the face piece of your partners. But I'm thinking, if I run out of air, eventually his low air is going to be going off. That's going to be not a good thing. So in my mind, I'm starting to pre-plan. And prior to me getting hired at the LA State Fire Department, I worked for Warner Brothers Studios. And we had a small single engine. It was a stepping stone to get to the big leagues. But what we did do there is we trained a lot, and we had the Mark II SCBA. We had the Mark II survivors. So I had a thorough working knowledge of that SCBA. So I had practiced sucking my face piece to my face and disconnecting my second stage hose and shoving it in my turnout, in my face piece pouch, my turnout coat and zip it up. So I had rehearsed that over and over prior to ever getting on LA State Fire Department. The sad irony about this incident to this point is there's now a point where that warrants mayday, mayday, mayday. Because I always say it's better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. Right? It's okay to survive that mayday and go back to that firehouse or that engine house and take a pummeling verbally. Hey, this guy called a mayday, blah, blah, but then to have that other picture up there, right? So I had an opportunity, or we had an opportunity that would, in those conditions, because now it's starting to get warmer and it's starting to get warmer. So that progression of us getting down that hallway into that warehouse area, we're talking about 6, 7, 8 minutes, right? Total time, right? So now this fire has been burning for approximately, you add the 10 minutes, you add 10 minutes force of entry, 8 minutes, 9 minutes. We're looking at 18, 19 minutes. And nobody's found to see this fire. So this fire is progressively getting worse. So meanwhile, there's heavy fire going through the roof. Unbeknownst to us down below. We are in there, 66s, 33s, 57s, 46s, with no truck on the road. Things are starting to change a little bit. If they're starting, I can start to feel the heat now. I don't have to kind of raise my hand up anymore. I can feel the heat, and now I'm starting to draw faster breaths, and I'm like, Craig, slow down. And I'm crawling out. I've got the nozzle. I've got one hand with Ted, and I'm crawling out. And I honestly don't know where we're at. I know which way we came in, but I have no idea where we're at. So I'm crawling, and I'm, Craig, slow down, slow your breathing down. And I'm crawling with them, and I remember vividly starting to feel like there's no way I'm gonna make it back to that door on one air, on this tank. So now my breathing is, as much as I'm trying to slow it down, it's increasing rapidly. Again, I would tell you that that's a mayday. And all these years later, I've thought, and it's not because I teach the Fireground Survival Program and I'm inundated with maydays, and that's my thought process, but honestly, I had never thought, I did not have a plan for mayday. As a young firefighter, it was something we very rarely ever discussed. It's something we very rarely ever went over. It just didn't happen to us. It happened to another agency. It happened back in New York. It happened somewhere else, but it never happened to Los Angeles City Fire Department. So I was not prepared for this type of event. I was kind of winging it. But I knew in my heart of hearts, I knew at the end of the day, I knew that I was probably not going to get out that door that I came in on one tank. And now I'm starting to get scared. And I will tell you, it's okay to be scared, but you can't panic. You can't ever end up in that fetal position. And I felt like the harder we pushed, the hotter it got, the faster I was drawing that air, I started to get scared. I'm not going to make it. So we're crawling out, and I'm going, Ted, I can't. I got to slow down, man. I'm getting hot. I'm starting to heat up. I'm getting low on air. And I realized, Craig, he can't hear you. It's like, I tell him, I say, hey, slow down. I can't. I'm running out of air.
We can't, Greg, we gotta keep pushing. So I'm kind of crawling, and I'm telling him, I'm like, slow down, Ted. I can't, I'm getting hot. And I know I'm getting low on air. Stop, we gotta push, Greg, we gotta push. So I get back up and I'm crawling, and I remember getting to a point where I know in my heart of hearts that I'm getting down to a very short amount of time before I suck that face piece to my face. And at this point, and I don't have a time frame for you, I don't know if it was 3 minutes, 4 minutes, I just know that it seemed like we were in there an eternity, and we really weren't. If you look at the time we made entry to the time all this is happening, it's a very short amount of time. But when you start to heat up, you start to breathe harder, you start to breathe faster, and there's a term that we use called BOA, breathe, organize, and kind of act on your thoughts. And you can't because you're so hot. You're just trying to survive. And the closer I got to the ground, the hotter it felt like it was becoming, and I knew we were going the right way. I couldn't understand because I had the nozzle, so I knew we weren't going the wrong way. The closer we got to the door that led us to that warehouse, it's because that fire had come down and got everything in that mezzanine burning. So the closer we got to our exit, which we knew we were going the right way, the hotter it got because that mezzanine was maybe at the end of the hallway, maybe 25 feet, and then kind of went down the sides and it kind of came back to back. So that mezzanine went over that door at the end of the hallway. So everything that had, so remember, this is a structure fire that was burning down, and that mezzanine was loaded with stuff, and there was a whole bunch of, there was 50-gallon drums, there was 25-gallon drums, so it wasn't like we just went in and went to the right. There was a whole bunch of, I don't want to say bell goods, but a lot of things that we had to navigate through. So it wasn't an easy hose like to begin with. It wasn't clear cut. It was starting to get hotter and hotter, and it was playing tricks in your mind because the closer you got to that hallway door, the hotter it got. And I couldn't understand, I couldn't reconcile that in my brain. Because now once you get to the point where you're starting to heat up and you're so hot, the only thing you're looking for is an out. There is no out here. The out is getting out that doorway you came in. That is your only option. And I remember saying, I saw those windows, but I could have never got to those windows. First of all, they were barred. Second of all, they were too high. I just knew that we had 5 windows over there. But they weren't going to be any help. And I was in no condition to get to those windows. I'm just trying to survive at this point. I'm just trying to stay on the hose. I'm praying, Lord, let me just get out on one air. I don't want to disconnect my face piece hose because now, at this point, it's so hot and it's so smoky, that's a death. You're going to die. As we're crawling, I'm trying to stay up with Ted. He's moving at a pretty good clip, and I understand it. I get it, because he's experiencing everything that I'm going through. The difference is he's not out of air yet. I'm just about out of air, and I finally grabbed him, and I told him, I said, Ted, I'm going to disconnect my face piece hose, and I'm going to put it into my face piece pouch in my turnout coat. And I remember him not saying anything, and I said, did you hear me? And he said, yeah. So at that point, I knew I had probably 2 or 3 breaths left. And it was the craziest thing because as I got as low as I could, I was down on the ground, and I kind of just asked him, I said, just stay here for a sec. I want to do this right here. I don't want to be crawling and do this. He's like, come on, Craig, we got to keep going, keep pushing. I'm like, relax. I got it. I understand that. So I took my last breath, and I disconnected my face piece hose. My pouch was unzipped. I put that face piece hose in my pouch and I zipped it up. And I remember at that moment, I had one hand on my pouch and I had one hand on him. And I remember it was the most vivid visual I've ever had in my life. I see my wife. I see a picture of my wife and I see a picture of my son. I see their face. And I said, thank you, God, that's a beautiful visual. Thank you for letting me see that. I remember seeing my son. I said, son, I'm coming. I'm coming. And I said, Craig, they can't hear you, bro. So as I'm following Ted, we're getting closer. I'm like, Lord, I'm at peace with this. I get it. I get why you're allowing me to see this visual. I understand it very clearly. I'm at peace. Thank you for letting me have this visual. Ted keeps, come on, Craig, let's go. Stay in the game. I'm on the ground. I can't take the heat. Stay in the game, Craig. So I'm
I'm holding on to them, and I'm like, Lord, just throw me a bone. Let me just see something. I don't want it to end like this. I'm thankful for what I see, but I don't want it to be this. So we're crawling, I'm crawling, and I remember, and I don't think I've ever shared this with anybody. I remember very specifically looking over, and I see a bright white light. And I told Ted, I said, this is it right here. So I said, Ted, this is the way. Because we weren't going towards that door. We were going off we're orienting ourselves to be towards the south side. And I remember I said, trust me, that's the right way. We crawl over, and what it was a hand light that our engineer set at the end of the door as we went into that warehouse. And I remember seeing that, and I remember coming into that hallway, and I remember seeing him, and I remember seeing Ted. And I asked him, I said, where's Cap? He said, he hasn't come out yet. I said, what do you mean he hasn't come out yet? What do you mean? He hasn't come out yet. So I crawl out, and there's heavy smoke in that little hallway. I crawl to the sidewalk, and the engineer goes, I said, I need another bottle. So he takes my bottle off my breather, and he replaces that bottle. And I remember crawling back down that hallway, and I went to turn my bottle on. I couldn't turn it on, so I had to take my breather off, turn it back on, put my breather back on. And I remember crawling down that hallway, and about 5 to 10 feet before we got to that warehouse, it was well evolved. So now we got pushed out that hallway. We came back out to the sidewalk, and it was myself, it was Ted, and it was the engineer off of Engine 57. And I remember very specifically at that point, when I was coming out that hallway, that first time I saw an engine captain, and I told him, Cap's gone. Joe Dupee has not come out. Red alert, red alert. And I'll never forget the look on his face. It looked like he just seen a ghost. At some point, that red alert got called. It got notified to the incident commander, and I don't know who did it or how it did, but it got called. And I remember coming out of that building, and I remember going around to that Delta side, and I remember just seeing complete chaos. At this point, that roller in the back had gotten open, and they were full of a wagon battery. And really, the scene of the fire for this whole thing was in the back, the Charlie side, kind of towards the Bravo. And that was where the fire had originated in one of those ovens. Had that roller got open initially, the fire was right there. The fire was 15, 20 feet inside that rolling steel door. There's a big rolling steel door in the back. Had they gone in that roller, they would have found it right there. That's where the scene of the fire was. And I remember walking around to that building, or to the back side of that building, and I remember just chaos. Just utter chaos. It was a free-for-all, because at that point, the red alert, what we would call a Mayday today, had been called, and they realized that the engine captain off from Engine 57 wasn't out. And I remember a salvage cover blocking, because the news media was there, blocking Cap as he was coming out of the building. And I remember they threw him in the back of 66. And I remember somebody, I don't even know who it was, they just took his back of the tailboard and said, "Sit down, relax." He's like, "Oh, relax." They just took my Cap to the hospital. I thought at the time, I'm like, all right, good, they found him. He's gonna be okay. And I remember just sitting in that tailboard. It's such a lonely feeling. You feel like a failure. You feel like, what just happened? And I remember those vivid pictures of my wife and my son, and I remember just thankfully being able to see that. And it was funny how the chief counselor this morning was talking about what that kid said. He was he was thinking of his mom, I was thinking of my wife and my son. I remember just feeling emptied inside. Like you have nothing left. So as you sit here today, they transported him to
Daniel Freeman, they pronounced them. It can happen to you, and it happens like that. We were in there for 15, 20 minutes, maybe. I never expected it. It happens when you least expect it. If you're not prepared, you won't survive. I was not prepared for the Mayday. Didn't even know what Mayday meant. I wasn't prepared to have to battle through that. What really kind of kept me going is that visual of my wife and my son. I did not want to get my son out. I didn't. My wife would be all right. My boy was 5. It's wrong. I plead with you to have a plan. Train. I know that every fire department is exhausted. I know that every fire department is shorthanded. I know that everybody's working way more than they want to. And what is the first thing that is sacrificed because you're tired is training? You can't. We've lost our way when it comes to structure firefighting. Everything else is trumped. Everything else comes first. You don't get a re-rack in this building. It's very unforgiving. This job will take you, and it doesn't care. After World War II, that changed. Now, OSHA came in for working conditions. That's kind of the changing. It was okay prior to that to kill. Firefighters died on the line of duty. It was okay. That was part of the gig. No, it's not part of the gig. For what? The place still stands. I don't do blood wounds anymore. But that's not okay. That's not an acceptable alternative. So, what follows this is a department gets splintered, it gets fractured. Because when you have to stand there at some point and you have to look a wife in the eye and she asks you what happened, and you say, I don't know. That's not an acceptable answer. But that's the truth. I don't know. That's the best I can get. Looking at his brother after he packed up his locker and he came to pick his car up. Hey, what happened? I don't know. That's not okay. So I would ask you, are you doing everything that you can do every day to be better? I know that a lot of people in this room may never be put in this position. And some will. Like Chief Captain said, you stay in this long enough, you're going to be put into a position that's going to be uncomfortable. Maybe even life-threatening. You may even have line duty. Because the numbers are there. In 1998, we killed 102 firefighters. If you fast forward 10 years to 2008, we killed 124. If you go another 10 years to 2018, we killed 86. It kind of dipped. Last year, we killed 96. In 2022, this morning, we're up to 12. It didn't stop. Ask me why? Why are those numbers still there? Why do we kill 100 people a year? 25 years later, we're having this conversation. Why? I got some thoughts. But it's not right. We don't have to keep doing this. And I understand very clearly, because I see some young guys in this audience, that everybody in this business has an expiration date. And mine's drawing near. And what I mean by expiration date is your time on the job is gone. You're no longer relevant. And I understand that. I'm okay with that. But I'm just telling you, have a plan. I'm sharing something so hopefully you don't have to walk down this road. There's no need to walk down this road. That was the first line of duty death in our fire department in 14 years. I'll tell you what, it didn't go over well. People want answers. And the hardest thing to do is when you don't have an answer, people draw their own conclusions. It's ugly, it gets messy. It'll scatter an organization. And it didn't help, 2 weeks later, we had Fire 3 went down. So in the month of March in 98, we got destroyed as a fire department. Or our Fire 3 went down. The result didn't does. So I would ask you, Chief, do we keep going or do you want to take a break? I don't have too much more.
I just have some numbers. I don't know. Do you know what time it is?
It's 10:15.
Oh, that's it. I got. You guys want to take a 10-minute break, or you want to just keep powering through?
Keep going.
Okay. All right. So I don't have. What I kind of want to do is we talked about the line of duty deaths, and I kind of captured from 98 to 2022 by going to 10-year increments. We didn't need to go through every year, because I'll tell you what they are: 95, 102, 106, 94, 82. They all average out to over 100, right? Trust me on that. But I kind of would want to kind of dive into that why. And I have some thoughts on why we keep killing people. And I will tell you that it's just my thought. It isn't facts. I've thought about it for a long time. Because what I did after this incident, the strangest thing is our chief of operations, basically our Joe Castro that was here this morning, at the time was Callahan, Chief Callahan. He came over 57s one day, and this is several months after this had gone down, and he called me in the front office. And he said, hey, sit down, Craig. Thank you. Chief Deputy, Chief Operations said, that's not a good thing. Right? Trouble. First thing I thought about it, but I didn't do anything. So he sits me down and goes, hey, Craig, I think it's time for you to leave. Like, what do you mean? Because I think it's time for you to go somewhere else. I'm like, why? I like it here. No. It's time for you to leave. He says, I will transfer you right now to anywhere in the city. And stupid me says, hey, I'll make you a deal. You tell the second in command, I'm going to make him a deal. I said, I'll tell you what, I want to go to a specific place, but I'm not going to bump somebody out of their assignment. And I said, I kind of know where you're going with this. You feel sorry for me. You want me to get here. Let's be honest. Because I just think it'd be a good change of pace. So I said, hey, okay. Because you have any thoughts of where you go? I said, yeah, I want to go Fire Station 11. He goes, you out of your mind? I said, yeah. But I want to go Fire Station 11. He goes, why? I said, I want to learn my job. I don't know my job. I will learn it there. He goes, you know anybody there? I said, I don't know a soul. Picks up the business phone, calls the secretary, hey, your vacancy Fire Station 11? Yeah, 11C. Goes, okay, transfer. Let's transfer. Like that doesn't happen on our job. My point behind sharing that is that I made a conscious decision that moment, maybe 6 months after the fire, that moment to either go all in or go out. I'm either in or I'm out. By going to Fire Station 11, I kind of just dove on the sword. Because I'm going to the big leagues now. I'm out of the minor leagues and I'm now headed to the bigs. And I don't know anything about that first district. All I know is it's extremely difficult. And the guys there demand a lot. And the greatest thing that ever could happen to me in my career is I got there, those guys in one in particular is here today, but they sat me down and said, hey, tell us what happened. I told them what happened. We moved on. We never thought about it again. They didn't coddle me. They didn't hug me. They didn't, hey, it's time to go to work. You ready, bro? You ready to learn your job? Or we're going to make you a firefighter. It was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Because I didn't need coddling. I just needed somebody to say, hey, I'm going to make you better. Because I did not want to revisit that ever again. So the why I'd ask you is, why do we kill 100 a year? I would say one of the reasons why is we stopped living our interview. And what I mean by that is, when we sat in our entrance interview, and they asked us all those goofy questions that we thought at the time, we kind of said, basically at the end of the day, we all said we're going to walk over and broke the last barefooted because we want this badge, right? He's more than anything. And at some point, you go through your career and you come to a hallway, like two hallways, like a Y, right? You go this path. This path is kind of tired, kind of want to slow down. This path is always paved with heavy smoke and experience, and vertical ventilation, and truck work, and everything that is required to have you be that firefighter we're supposed to be. And this hallway's kind of like, just burned out, my wife's kind of on me, and a variety of things may happen in your life, and a variety of paths may take you down that, but that's not, that path, that hallway shouldn't be traveled yet. We still got to work on this one. We stopped leaving our interview. We hate the fire department. Everybody owes it. We just kind of turn into a mess. And everything that you stood for, that high performance, that high character, that high speed, everything that you're supposed to be kind of just disappears. Because
away. And you became angry. You become bitter. And you hate everything around you. Meanwhile, you have very few finish the race. Very few stay in that hallway to glean that experience and that knowledge from people that are better than you that can make you better. I think that contributes huge to that. Because what comes out of that one hallway is communication, complacency, and continuity. You start losing that fabric, that value. And I would submit to you today that you have to spend more time with this one than this one. Now, 28 years, I don't want to be a hypocrite, because I'm on a slow assignment right now. But kind of just there, we train, we do our thing. We have an incredible, if I was to script out an engine company of people that, here, if the fire chief said, hey Craig, I want you to write 3 names down on an engine company that would be the engineer and the firefighter, paramedic, and firefighter, I'd do Chris Paul, Eric Carpenter, Eric Castillo. I got a dream company. I could get off the rig and fall down and crack my head up and lay there, and they're still going to go put the fire out or handle this incident. The best company in the world. That's why I'm there. But I traveled that hallway way late, and I didn't go down that exact hallway. It's just kind of a slower one. But I really believe that's why. That's not the only reason, but I really believe it's an attitude. Because honestly, these NIOSH reports here, if you read one, you could start going through them and you could pick this one apart. There's 1,000 things in this fire. The meeting should have gone 30 times by 30 different people. We should have turned around. Oh, we kept pushing. I'm telling you, if you feel something, it's not lying to you, it's real. Some say spider instinct, some say six, whatever the term is, but believe it, because it's not lying to you. You can't just grab that. You can't make that stuff up. You have to train. You have to continuously train. You can never stop training. The minute you stop training, if you don't get the sets and reps, and you're not doing this, and you're not training, you're not prepared. So when you have to call that Mayday, and the first time you call it is the actual time, it's not going to go well. Had I known what I know now then, I don't get into that. But I can't go back and change that. I can't go back and replace that. A lot of changes have happened in the last 25 years. You look at turnouts, you look at policies and procedures, you look at safety equipment, you look at DUL, Underwriters Laboratory, and has done exhaustive research and studies on fire behavior. And we should be, as a fire service, significantly farther along 25 years later, and I'm only using 1998 as a benchmark because of this specific incident. But if we look 25 years from then, everything that's been provided for us, I think the greatest thing on the planet personally, and it has zero to do with me because I'm involved in it, is the Fire Ground Survival Program, for one reason. Because it forces a department and organization to have a plan for Mayday. The worst day of your life that could potentially happen, you have to have a plan. You have to practice it. And low wind reduce is amazing, entanglement's amazing, window hanging, all the features that go with that program. We've added 4 since to that program, but all those ladder bells, everything that goes with that, grab lives, that's to be familiar with, they're amazing components. But the one thing it forces you to do is have a plan. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. 9 letters, grab lives. It's kind of simple. But it gives you the opportunity to survive should you get into that scenario. We complicate things in the fire department. Every fire paints you a picture. It's kind of up to you to read it, right? So we kind of make things more difficult than it needs to be if we just do what we're supposed to do. Lay a line. Good forcible entry. Understanding forcible entry. Ground waters we're supposed to be. Vertical ventilation we're supposed to be if your department does that. Or if you're pleasant pressure, however that plays out with your agency. The appropriate hose line. Understanding smoke. Reading it. Understanding fire behavior. Kind of simple.
We can eliminate them. Most of these, if not all these, in my opinion, are avoidable. Along the way, we lose our way in these incidents, and we never have the company discipline or that personal discipline to say, stop. No matter what we do right now, it's not going to change. We're only going to compound and make it worse. So I'm telling you, it's about training. But I really believe it's an attitude. I really believe that fork in that road, when you've kind of gone sideways from what you said you were and what you said you would be, has a significant impact on that.
Rick, would you entertain some questions?
Oh yeah, I don't know if there probably isn't going to be any, but yeah.
This is a very unique opportunity. I know that pretty powerful, but I think it would be great if we could open it up to the floor and questions you have. First question I have is, as you're doing these fire grounds route training across the country, are you finding the same type of